Be-Bop Lick 1. This is the first of a few pages in my advanced jazz piano book looking at phrases that are in a bebop style. We call this learning licks. Licks is other people's phrases or sometimes a phrase you've made up yourself, but there's often situations where you copy phrases from other musicians, and we tend to put a title to that as in you've learnt some licks, and that's what it means, but it can be your own licks. Bebop. Why bebop? So bebop is the language of jazz. It's not the language of every jazz musician, but most jazz musicians have studied bebop or acquired some phrases that draw upon that kind of language. And I'm not going to go into huge explanations of bebop now, but bebop was the music that came out of the 1940s and 50s, and it's been adopted in even in contemporary times. A lot of the ideas, the chromaticism and the offbeat nature of some of the phrases are used still. So why would you learn a bebop lick? Well, learning a bebop lick has a really good use in that when you're playing through jazz standards where we have functional harmony, it's really good to have some pre-learnt phrases so that your fingers know where to go, and it gives you a start. You don't want to just play lick after lick after lick, but it's probably unlikely you would do that because you'd start varying it and improvising it quite quickly. So the first idea that I've put on Be-Bop Lick 1 is in the key of C major. The chords are 2, 5, 1, and so that's D minor, G7 and C7, and I've chosen a very straightforward lick. I've no idea where it came from. It's probably taught to me by previous teachers, but it's one that I've remembered because it's so simple, and it sounds like this. I'm going to do quite basic voicings in the left hand just to make it obvious. And you can swing it. You can play it straight. I mean, playing it straight would work if you're playing very fast. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. But for learning purposes, it's probably best to keep the tempo down. So a nice swung feel is great. Then I've done a pattern that goes through all the keys. This particular one goes down. You could have gone up in tones. You can go around the cycle of fifths. So I'm just going to play it through the first 6 keys. Obviously going down in tones means you only get through 6 keys. So to get through all the 12 keys, you would do a similar thing, but maybe start on, well, you could start on D sharp instead of D, or E flat, as it's probably a nicer way to think of it. Or you could perhaps start on G minor, because that's not included in those particular patterns. So I will play through this so you can hear how it sounds. So. And then you can improvise on chord 1 at the end. Again. I did the last one twice because I did a little variation. I don't know if you heard that, and so I thought I'd better play it correctly. But that's a natural thing. After a while, you will want to vary it. So If we go back to the first lick, which was in C, not only can you improvise in the section afterwards, you could also start to vary the first lick. I just varied a little bit of that, and then maybe see if you can do a few variations on it. Sometimes people like sometimes people like to write out their variations, make it very formal. Other people just like to improvise. But the one thing I think is quite important is to treat it like an exercise, in that you have good fingering. So you can see, if you have the book in front of you, that all the notes there's fingering underneath. And that's because sometimes when you get into trickier keys, such as A flat minor, well, that's the first chord. This is fourth system down, where it's a 2-5-1 to G flat major. You've got A flat minor, D flat 7, and G flat major 7. It starts on an A flat, and it's a lot of black keys. So I'm starting on finger 2. If you just started on your thumb and didn't think, you'd end up going, oh gosh, I've just run out of fingers. So part of playing these licks is, because you're going to be learning patterns, it means when you apply them yourself in an improvisation, you're not going to run out of fingers. You're going to get pre-learnt patterns to help you get through the various changes. That's the first lesson on a bebop lick. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you a couple of other ideas.